Have you ever caught yourself scrolling through your phone when you meant to do something important? Or found your mind racing with thoughts you didn't invite, pulling you into stories that feel completely real but exist nowhere except in your head? What if I told you that your own mind, the very thing you trust most to navigate reality, might be playing tricks on you in ways you've never noticed? There's something unsettling about realizing that the voice in your head, the one you assume is you, might actually be running programs you never consciously chose. It's like discovering that someone else has been driving your car while you thought you were in control. And the strangest part, most people live their entire lives without ever questioning whether the thoughts appearing in their awareness actually belong to them. Right now, as you're listening to this, your mind is probably doing what it always does. It's labeling, judging, comparing, predicting. It's creating a story about what this video means, whether it's worth your time, how it relates to your life. But here's the thing that might shake you a little. That voice commenting on everything isn't necessarily the real you. It's more like a radio that's been left on, broadcasting content you never asked to hear. Think about it. When was the last time you sat in complete silence and noticed what happens? Not meditation, not trying to be spiritual, just simple observation. Most people can't do it for more than 30 seconds before the mental chatter kicks in. Suddenly, there are thoughts about what you need to do later, judgments about how you look, memories from yesterday, worries about tomorrow, and all of this appears automatically, without your permission, like a program running in the background. But what if this isn't normal? What if this constant mental noise is actually a form of hijacking that's been happening so long you've forgotten what it feels like to think clearly? The human mind wasn't designed to process the amount of information it encounters in modern life. We're dealing with more stimulation in a single day than our ancestors encountered in months, and somewhere along the way, our mental systems started adapting in ways that don't serve us. Your brain, in its attempt to keep you safe and make sense of overwhelming input, has developed shortcuts. These shortcuts become habits, and these habits become the lens through which you see everything. But here's what's disturbing. You're not seeing reality anymore. You're seeing your mind's interpretation of reality, filtered through patterns that were formed when you were much younger, much more vulnerable, and operating with far less information about how the world actually works. Every day, your mind is making thousands of micro decisions about what to pay attention to, what to ignore, what to fear, what to desire. It's creating stories about why people behave the way they do, what your future will look like, whether you're safe or in danger. And most of these stories are based on incomplete data, old wounds, and assumptions you've never examined. The result is that you're not really living your life. You're living your mind's version of your life. You're reacting to thoughts as if they're facts. You're making decisions based on fears that may not be real. You're chasing goals that were programmed into you by experiences you've forgotten. And the whole time, you believe you're in control. This isn't your fault. Nobody taught you to distinguish between awareness and the content of awareness. Nobody showed you how to recognize when your mind is running old programs versus when you're actually present and responding to what's here. You've been conditioned to believe that you are your thoughts, that your mental commentary is gospel truth, that the stories playing in your head are accurate representations of reality. But what if they're not? What if most of the suffering you experience comes not from your circumstances, but from your mind's interpretation of your circumstances? What if the anxiety you feel isn't about what's actually happening, but about what your mind thinks might happen? What if the depression isn't about your life, but about the story your mind tells about your life? This might sound abstract, but let me give you something concrete to work with. Right now, notice what your mind is doing. Is it agreeing with what I'm saying? Is it disagreeing? Is it trying to figure out where this is going? Is it getting distracted by sounds around you or thoughts about other things? Whatever it's doing, just observe it without trying to change it. That observing part, the part that can notice what your mind is doing without being swept away by it, that's closer to who you actually are. It's the awareness that exists before thoughts arise and after they fade. It's the space in which all mental activity appears, and it's been there your whole life, quietly witnessing everything, but you've been so focused on the content of your thoughts that you've forgotten about the awareness itself. Most people spend their entire lives identified with their mental activity. They think they are the voice in their head, the emotional reactions, the beliefs and opinions and preferences. But you're not any of those things. You're the consciousness that experiences all of those things. And when you start to recognize this distinction, everything changes. Your mind will try to convince you that this is dangerous territory. It will tell you that questioning your thoughts is impractical, that you need your mental commentary to function, that without constant thinking, you'll become passive or disconnected. But this is just another program running. Your mind's job is to keep you within familiar patterns, even if those patterns are making you miserable. The truth is, when you stop being hijacked by automatic mental processes, you become more present, more responsive, more alive. You start seeing situations as they actually are, instead of through the filter of past conditioning. You begin responding from wisdom instead of reacting from old wounds. You discover that most of the problems you thought were real were actually just problems in your thinking. But here's where it gets interesting. Your mind doesn't just hijack your perception of external reality. It hijacks your perception of yourself, the image you have of who you are, your strengths and weaknesses, your worth and limitations. All of this has been constructed by mental processes that may have very little to do with who you actually are. You've been carrying around a self-concept that was formed when you were much younger, based on feedback from people who were dealing with their own mental hijacking. You've been trying to improve this false self, defend this false self, express this false self. But what if the self you think you are is just another story? What if, underneath all the mental constructions about yourself, there's something much more fundamental, much more free? This is where most people get uncomfortable, because the ego, the mind's version of you, feels threatened when you start to see through it. It will create resistance, doubt, confusion. It will tell you this is too complicated or too simple. It will pull you back into familiar patterns of thinking about yourself and your life. But if you can stay present with this discomfort instead of being pulled back into automatic reactions, something remarkable begins to happen. You start to taste freedom, not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to see what's actually here without the distortion of mental filters, the freedom to respond to life directly instead of through the maze of conditioned patterns, the freedom to discover who you are when you're not being defined by your history, your thoughts, or your circumstances. And this is just the beginning, because once you see how your mind has been running the show, you can start to reclaim your actual power. Not the power to control everything around you, but the power to choose how you relate to whatever appears in your experience. So how do you actually do this? How do you break free from patterns that have been running automatically for years, maybe decades? The first step isn't what most people expect. It's not about fighting your thoughts or trying to think better thoughts. It's about learning to catch yourself in the act of being hijacked. Start paying attention to the moments when you're completely absorbed in mental activity, when you're replaying conversations from yesterday, rehearsing arguments that might never happen, creating elaborate scenarios about the future. Notice how real these mental movies feel, how your body responds as if these imagined situations are actually occurring right now. This is your mind creating a virtual reality that feels more compelling than actual reality. Your nervous system can't tell the difference between a real threat and an imagined one. So, when your mind conjures up worst-case scenarios, your body floods with stress hormones. When it replays embarrassing moments, you feel shame as if it's happening again. When it fantasizes about future success, you get a hit of satisfaction without actually accomplishing anything. You've been living in a simulation created by your own mental processes. And the more you feed this simulation with your attention, the more real it becomes. But here's what your mind doesn't want you to discover. The moment you step out of the simulation, even for a few seconds, you remember what it feels like to be actually alive. Try this right now. Put your attention on your breath, not thinking about breathing, but actually feeling the sensation of air moving in and out of your body. Notice how your mind immediately wants to comment on this experience, to evaluate whether you're doing it right, to remind you of other things you should be doing. That commentary is the hijacking in action. But notice also that you can observe the commentary without being pulled into it. You can watch your mind doing what it does, while staying connected to the simple physical reality of breathing. This is the difference between being lost in thought and being aware of thought. It's the difference between being hypnotized and being awake. Most people think awareness is just another mental function, like memory or imagination. But awareness isn't produced by your brain. Your brain processes information, creates thoughts, generates emotions. But the awareness that knows all of this is happening, that's something else entirely. It's the unchanging background against which all experience appears. When you start to rest in this awareness instead of being swept away by mental content, your whole relationship with life transforms. Problems that seemed overwhelming begin to look manageable. Emotions that felt permanent start to move through you naturally. The voice in your head loses its authority because you recognize it as just one more phenomenon appearing in consciousness. This doesn't mean you stop thinking or become some kind of zombie. Your mind is still there, still functional, still capable of solving problems and making plans. But now it's a tool you can use consciously instead of a master that controls you unconsciously. You can engage with thoughts when they're helpful and let them pass when they're not. And here's where it gets really interesting. When you're no longer being hijacked by automatic mental patterns, you start to see how much of your life has been shaped by these patterns. The relationships you've chosen, the career moves you've made, the habits you've developed, all of it influenced by programming you never consciously examined. You begin to recognize how your mind has been filtering reality to confirm its existing beliefs, seeking information that supports its worldview while ignoring anything that challenges it. You see how it's been creating the same problems over and over again because it's operating from the same limited set of responses. But now you have a choice. Instead of automatically reacting from old conditioning, you can pause. You can feel what's actually happening in your body, sense what's really present in this moment, and respond from a place of clarity rather than reactivity. This is what it means to be free. The irony is that the very mind trying to convince you this is impossible is the same mind that's been limiting your possibilities all along. It will tell you that you need to think constantly to survive, that questioning your thoughts is dangerous, that you can't trust your direct experience. But these are just more programs running, more attempts to keep you trapped in familiar patterns. The truth is much simpler than your mind wants to admit. You are the awareness in which all experience appears. Thoughts, emotions, sensations, perceptions, they all arise and pass away in this vast space of consciousness that you are. And when you recognize this, when you stop identifying with the changing contents of awareness and rest as awareness itself, you discover a peace and freedom that doesn't depend on circumstances. This isn't a temporary high or a spiritual experience you have once in a while. This is your natural state, available in every moment, hidden only by the mental noise you've been mistaking for yourself. And the more you practice returning to this awareness, the more natural it becomes to live from this place of clarity and presence. Your mind has been running the show for so long that it feels normal to be anxious, distracted, reactive, caught up in stories about the past and future. But normal doesn't mean natural. What's natural is the alert, peaceful awareness that exists right now underneath all the mental activity, waiting for you to remember who you really are. So stop trying to fix your mind and start recognizing what you are beyond your mind. Stop trying to improve your thoughts and start seeing that you are the consciousness that witnesses all thoughts. Stop trying to solve the problems created by mental hijacking and start stepping out of the hijacked state entirely. This is the real solution, the one your mind will never offer because it would put itself out of business. But you don't need your mind's permission to be free. You just need to remember what you've always been underneath all the programming, all the conditioning, all the automatic patterns that have been running your life. You are not your thoughts. You are not your mind. You are the awareness that knows both thinking and not thinking, the consciousness that remains unchanged while everything else comes and goes. And from this place, you can finally begin to live your actual life instead of the life your mind has been living for you. The hijacking ends the moment you stop believing you are what's being hijacked. And remember, you are what can never be hijacked. And that recognition changes everything.